Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Back soon. Can't do this. That was the whole note. 5 words, written in shaky pen on a grocery receipt, sitting on top of the crib like it belonged there. It wasn't taped, just laid across the edge like she thought I'd find it cute. I read it once, blinked, read it again. The third time, it hit like a slap. I went cold from my neck to my heels. The baby was crying again, 4 weeks old, screaming like I'd stolen something. I picked him up, one hand under his head, the other shaking like hell. My shirt was wet. Not sweat. Formula or spit up or hell. Maybe tears. I couldn't tell. Kendall was 19. Just 19. We'd been back from the hospital less than a month. I knew she was slipping. The baby blues had stretched into full-on silence, then long showers, then pills I never saw prescribed. She started borrowing from people who didn't ask twice. She took her purse and walked out at dawn, and the front door was still half cracked, swinging like it couldn't believe she was gone either. Before we start, tell us which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks, and let's continue. My name's Derek. I'm 29. I live in a busted townhouse off I-30 in Garland, Texas. The carpet was older than me, and the fridge groaned when you closed it. But it was ours. Or it was. I called my parents first. First ring, Mom answered. You okay? She asked. No, I said. Kendall's gone. Pause. Then the knife. We warned you. I didn't say anything. Dad got on the line, said, You picked her, Derek. Don't drag us into this. They offered no help. No gas money. No crib sheets. Just disappointment layered over a smug I'd grown up choking on. Beck kept rooting at my chest like he thought milk was going to show up if he screamed loud enough. I held him tighter and sat on the edge of the couch, heart hammering, vision tunneling. Then the phone rang again. Not my folks. My landlord. You're solo now? He asked, not even pretending to care. Rent's due next Friday. If you can't cover it, I gotta repost the unit. I got it, I said, lying. I hung up, walked straight to the sink, and threw up. Next door, I guess Harlan heard me gagging, or heard Beck wailing through the drywall. He knocked once. Then the door opened like he owned the place. You're burning daylight, he said, already unscrewing a formula can with a pocket knife he wiped on his jeans. Ration the powder. Clock your feeds. Nap when he naps. No speeches. Move. He looked like he'd been carved out of a tree. Gray hair, tan skin, hands that had seen engines and enemies. Marine turned machinist. Lived alone, said little, always nodded at me, but never said more than, morning. He handed me a green thermos, dented and scraped like it had been to war. Hot water stays hot, he said. You'll need it when you're stuck on a bus or sitting in some waiting room. This got me through Kuwait. It'll handle your 3 a.m. We sat at my kitchen table with a piece of junk mail and made a plan. Feed times, diaper runs, county office for vouchers, places hiring night shifts. He circled 3 and underlined, show up clean. Day 3, I took Beck on the bus in a stroller. We lurched, and I dumped half a bottle of formula right into my lap. Bus went dead quiet. Some kid in a hoodie laughed. I just sat there, dripping milk, trying not to cry. Harlan's words stuck. Act first, explain later. I hit 5 job spots in a row with Beck strapped to me. Didn't beg, didn't whine, just asked if they had hours that fit a single dad. Midnight came, and I was back in the townhouse, reading that note again. She'd taken her exit. I decided I was taking the wheel. I tucked the thermos under the crib and set 2 alarms, one for 2:10, one for 5:35. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I moved. A week later, I was back on the same bus line with Beck knocked out in the stroller, mouth open, his curls damp from the heat. I had my thumb pushing around nickels and dimes on my knee, counting transfers like it was a test I couldn't afford to fail. The woman across from me wore a dark gray jacket with tiny grease smears near the elbows and had a face that said she'd seen every kind of stupid twice and didn't flinch at any of it. She reached into her bag and handed over a travel pack of wipes and a business card without saying a word. I took both before my brain even caught up. The card read, Maya Layton, Lockline Mobile Locksmith. You steady under fire? She asked, nodding at Beck, who was making soft snore sounds like a broken fan. I shrugged and said, I'm short on options. She gave a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. We all are. I need someone who shows up, stays calm, and doesn't mind 2 a.m. doors. Trainee pay to start. Schedule's flexible. Interested? Lock work isn't magic. It's focus, patience, and hands that don't shake when someone's yelling about a kid stuck inside or a dog chewing drywall behind a locked door. Maya let me ride along that same night. I left Beck with Harlan, who only said, be here at 7 sharp, not 7:01, then shut his door like the conversation was done. Maya worked quiet and quick. No wasted movement. I watched her swap a deadbolt on a rental in under 8 minutes and replace a mailbox lock at a small church like she was rewiring a toaster. After the 4th job, she pointed at the kit and said, your turn. I didn't overthink it, just followed her lead. The mailbox didn't fight back. My parents called twice that week, once to say, you made your bed, and the next time to suggest I swallow your pride and move home. The catch? They had a full list of rules. No TV after 9, no junk food, no daycare. Mom would handle Beck. I hung up and blocked Dad for a while after that. Then something good happened. The county sent word we'd been approved for a daycare voucher, $410. It didn't sound like much, but it covered 3 afternoons a week at a center that didn't smell like bleach or cigarettes. Beck had soft blocks, clean snacks, and teachers who called him Buddy without faking it. I took night shifts, graveyard jobs, whatever Maya could throw my way. Sometimes I crashed in the van with the windows cracked, one hand still on my phone. Harlan started running our mornings like basic training. He had this rhythm: wake, feed, burp, rinse bottles, stretch 5 minutes, stroller loaded, coffee poured. You stick to a rhythm, he said, wrapping the thermos like it was sacred. Bad days won't knock you clean over. Saturday I turned one of our moving boxes into Beck's kitchen, used a bungee cord to rig a shelf, borrowed one of Harlan's old thermoses for a coffee pot, and added a plastic ladle and a pan from the dollar bin. Beck took it seriously, stirred his pretend soup, handed me cups of invisible coffee, told me it was extra spicy. I played along and told him it was too strong, and he laughed so hard he dropped the ladle. Felt like winning the damn Super Bowl. Maya noticed the little things. Your timesheets are clean, she said one night while sorting tools in the back of the van. Your van's cleaner. You don't cancel. You don't complain. You ask 2 questions and fix the thing. You want more hours? Only if I can stack them around the kid, I said, rubbing my neck. She grinned, handed me a small power drill with, Don't lose this, Derek, written on the side in Sharpie. We can build a ladder out of that. She moved me up to on-call evenings 3 times a week, plus Saturday mornings. Things weren't smooth, but they moved. Back home, the HOA's new property manager, Trevor Pike, had started sniffing around like a bloodhound. First, it was a notice about Harlan's garage door paint fading unevenly. Then it was his flag bracket. Then the lawn edging line. I wish I was joking. 2 inches off, he claimed. Harlan called it tin-badged nonsense, but I started logging every single notice in a folder. Beck took to the daycare better than I expected. He came home showing me how to wash hands, the clean way, and once he pointed at a pigeon and yelled, That's not a chicken, so loud the bus driver snorted. Maya told me once, You've got calm hands. That's rare, Harlan said. Don't say anything you can just do. Beck said, Daddy, soup hot, and handed me a spoon with nothing on it. That was my week. Again and again. No applause, no miracle. Just grind. I slept when I could, stayed moving when I couldn't. Nights were for jobs and bottle cleaning. Mornings were toddler chaos and burnt toast. But I kept the thermos full and Beck fed. I didn't have room to dream. I had room to function, and that was enough. For now. Lockouts at 11 at night make you appreciate silence like it's gold. When everything goes right, you barely make a sound, just the click of the pins setting, the soft rattle of a latch, and you're gone. But when it's bad, babies wake, dogs bark, and neighbors peek through curtains like they're auditioning for a crime show. I learned to stand where porch cams could see me, and always leave the receipt in plain sight. I kept my voice low and my stance neutral. You treat people indoors the same. Both can slam when you least expect it. One Tuesday, I was flat on my back under a storefront deadbolt, hands cramping from the angle, when my phone buzzed on the sidewalk beside me. I thumbed it to speaker without looking. "This is Miss Jeanette from Beck's daycare." "He's fine. Just a heads up. He's low on pull-ups." "Can you bring some tomorrow?" I nodded like she could see me. "Yeah, absolutely. I'll drop them off early." I hung up, flexed my fingers, and went back to coaxing the deadbolt loose. Don't tell me men can't multitask. We just don't build shrines to it. Maya had me on tighter rotations by then. She'd double-check my kid in the morning, quiz me on key machine errors over coffee, and still expect me to hit calls like I'd been doing this 10 years. "Key machines don't care about excuses," she said once, handing me a clipboard. "Neither do customers. You do your checklist, you breathe, then you talk." I wrote it down and lived it. That order worked better than any pep speech. That same week, my mom sent me a text. Paragraph long, full of guilt disguised as worry. Said it was hurtful that I posted Beck's first haircut without mentioning the grandparents who tried to warn you. I started typing "not helpful" back, but stopped. Deleted it. Instead, I took Beck to the park and taught him to kick a ball without falling. Harlan sat on a bench, sunglasses on, arms crossed, looking like a watchdog in retirement. I plopped down next to him when Beck wandered toward the sandbox. "You're doing fine," he said, still watching the kid. "Ignore noise. Keep going." We had one night I'll never forget. I missed the 2 a.m. alarm. Woke up at 3:20 in a panic. Beck was awake, humming some tune to himself in the crib, pacifier on the floor, diaper soaked. I felt like garbage. My chest burned with it. But he looked at me, grinned like I just brought him chocolate cake, and said, "Hi, Daddy." It was the kind of moment that breaks something in you, but also patches it up different. Then Trevor, our favorite HOA tyrant, put a violation slip on Harlan's door for a damn flower planter. Called it an unauthorized obstruction. Harlan snorted, then got quiet. "One more of these," he said, tucking the paper under a magnet, "and I'm bringing a folding chair to the board meeting." I didn't say much, just added it to the folder. Everything dated, photographed, labeled. I wasn't letting this one rot under the rug. That Friday, Maya tossed me a company polo before our first stop. It wasn't new, but it was clean and blue, and had the Lockline logo stitched on the chest. "Customers relax when you look like you know where the screws go," she said. The shirt fit weird across the shoulders, but it felt like something more than just cotton, like a marker in the road. I didn't say it, but she knew. Later that week, I got called to a senior building. A woman named Mrs. Flanagan wanted a peephole lowered so she could see out without standing on tiptoe. I did it fast, clean, and level. When I tested it, she beamed. "My late George never had the patience," she said, then reached up and gave me a hug that smelled like lavender and old paper. "You're set," I told her. In the van, I let myself smile for 10 seconds. Maybe 12. That night, back home, I moved Beck's little cardboard kitchen next to mine. He stirred invisible stew while I boiled pasta, and we ate off the same tray. "We're a team," I told him. He nodded without blinking. "I know." Then came the voicemail from my father. I almost didn't listen. "We're not your enemy," he said, in that voice that always tried to sound like wisdom, but came out more like judgment. "But you made this mess." I went to delete it, then changed my mind. I saved it, not to re-listen or stew on, just to remind myself of the distance. That Sunday, Beck and I stopped at the grocery store. He insisted on pushing the cart. We passed a couple I vaguely knew from the townhouse complex. Parents, probably mid-30s, 2 kids in tow. The woman nodded politely. The guy said, "Still doing that single dad thing?" I looked him straight in the face. Still doing that mouthy stranger thing? He blinked like I slapped him with a math test. I pushed the cart on and let Beck pick out a yogurt. Later that night, I sat with Harlan while Beck fell asleep on the floor in front of the fan. I told him about the voicemail, about the guy at the store. "You're going to hit a point," he said, sipping black coffee from that old green thermos, "where you stop explaining yourself to people who don't do a damn thing for you. That's the line. You'll know when you've drawn it." I nodded, but I already knew. I'd drawn it the moment I told my mother nothing was missing from that haircut picture. No grandparents, no shame, no guilt-shaped apologies. Just me and the kid and the scissors. That line wasn't temporary. I planned to keep it there. Beck was 4 and built like a spark plug, sturdy, wired for motion, full of questions that didn't come as a storm, but as pebbles in a boot. You don't notice at first. Then they're all you can feel. We were out front under the shade tree by Harlan's driveway, a half-dozen toy trucks scattered across the dirt like a wreck site. Beck was lining them up, narrating something about a tow truck and a milk truck getting married, when he asked it like he was reading a label out loud. "Why does everybody have a mom?" I looked up from my coffee, but he wasn't done. "Where's mine?" He said it straight. No edge, no fear, just curious. Like he wanted to know why some kids had lunchboxes with superheroes and others had glitter. I didn't stall. Harlan's rule. Answer honest, answer simple. Don't make it a speech. "You do have a mom," I said, setting my cup down. "She had a hard time. She's not safe right now." "That's not your fault." Beck squinted up at the sky like he was thinking hard, then nodded once and went back to stacking dirt on a dump truck. "Okay. Can I have 2 oranges?" I cleared my throat. "Yeah, buddy. You can have 2 inside." I rinsed the fruit in the sink, hands shaking a little. I had to turn my face to the wall for a second, just to get it together. Harlan stood by the stove, flipping the thermos lid with one hand and watching me with the kind of stillness that means everything and nothing. He didn't speak until my shoulders dropped. "It's not about answers," he said, pouring hot water over a bag of cheap tea. "It's about you not flinching." He'll remember that more than the words. That night, after Beck went down, I laid out his school clothes, tiny cargo pants and a red t-shirt with a faded dino print. Then I took a sticky note and wrote in all caps, "Dad picks up at 3:10. Taped it inside his backpack. Redundant, maybe, but my breathing eased after. 2 days later, the daycare sent home a flyer about a family wall project. Photos, drawings, anything that showed what home looked like. Beck handed it to me like it was a prize he'd won. I pulled up the photo from the strip mall arcade, the one where I had a helmet smashed over my ears and Beck was mid-laugh, hiccuping so hard his whole body leaned sideways. I printed it at the library, cropped it, stuck it in a folder, and dropped it off at daycare with the rest of his stuff. The teacher looked at it, smiled, and said, "Perfect." Gave me a thumbs up like I needed permission to feel like I was enough. That same afternoon, my mom sent a link, a church video titled "Restoring Order to Broken Homes." I didn't click it. I blocked her number for 60 days, told Harlan about it over toast. "You stretched before the run," he said, folding his newspaper without looking up. Good. Beck kept trucking along like kids do. His favorite shirt was the one Maya gave him, gray with a red lock logo on the sleeve. He called it his worker shirt. He'd sit in the entryway some nights waiting for me to come back from jobs, asking if we were going to eat real dinner or fast dinner. Maya heard about the question, not because I told her, but because she catches things on my face before I do. We were driving back from a job, her behind the wheel, eyes on the road. She asked, "You handled it?" "I think so," I said. Didn't lie. Didn't panic. She nodded, flicked on the blinker. "You think about next year? Kindergarten?" "I'm thinking about Mother's Day first," I said, "and the bring a special lady crafts they like to spring on kids like it's harmless." She tapped the steering wheel. "We'll make our own days. Company picnic. Lockline's got room for toddlers and old Marines." That night, Beck dragged his box kitchen under the dining table and turned it into a cafe. The green thermos sat in the middle like a centerpiece. He poured imaginary tea into 2 plastic cups and handed one to Harlan with both hands. "This one's spicy," he said, very serious. Harlan sniffed it, nodded. "Smells dangerous, chef." They toasted, Beck with his chin up, like this was some Michelin-rated operation. After he went to bed, I found one of his drawings in my work bag, stick figures holding hands, a square with wheels under it labeled "Our Lock Van." No mom in the picture. Just me, him, and Harlan's hat on a third blob with boots. There was no sadness in it, just fact. I sat on the porch with the thermos, watching the yard lights flicker on. For the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The next morning, I dropped Beck off early and told the teacher he might ask more questions soon. She nodded. "We don't give kids all the answers," she said. "We give them space to hold the ones they get." That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't flinch when Beck asked where his mom was. That mattered. I didn't lie. That mattered more. And when he smiled and said, "Can I have 3 oranges next time?" I told him sure. No hesitation. Spring didn't ease in that year. It slammed the door open. Rain beat the gutters sideways, and every lock in town swelled like it had something to prove. Deadbolts stuck, handles stripped, tenants yelled, landlords panicked. We were slammed. Maya started routing calls straight to me. "You don't get flustered," she said. "That matters." She didn't have to say it twice. I was already in motion. She signed me up for state certification and handed me a study guide thick enough to kill a squirrel. "Don't overthink the test," she told me, handing me a second folder labeled "Shortcuts Derek Proofed." "You overplan in a good way. Use it." I studied on the couch, Beck laying toy cars in perfectly spaced rows across my legs like I was a racetrack. I read sections out loud to myself until he started parroting the words cam lock and strike plate like they were names of superheroes. I passed with 89%. Not a trophy score, but I don't need ribbons. Maya slapped the test results against my chest and said, "There's your green light." Then she added me to a few commercial jobs and told me to handle the customer quotes when she was on another line. "You're the steady one," she said. "Don't lead with charm. Lead with proof." Sunday rolled around, and I was scrubbing Beck's rain boots at the front door when a knock hit like a courtroom gavel. My folks. No warning. Just standing there with a box of groceries and the kind of tension that hums behind the eyes. "We thought we'd help," Mom said, stepping in without waiting. She set down the groceries and immediately opened her mouth like she was waiting in a confessional. "Beck needs older women around, Derek. You can't be both." I didn't even let it soak. "Thanks for the peaches," I said, holding the door open like it was a lifeboat. "We're fine," Dad chimed in as he shuffled his feet. "You're proud." "That's the problem." "No, sir," I said, squaring up without raising my voice. "I'm busy." 2 steps behind me, Harlan appeared like a tree moving on its own, arms crossed, stone-faced, silent. That was all it took. They left with tight mouths and no offer to return. Later that week, Maya brought Beck a little red toolbox made of snapped-together plastic with his name painted on the side in white. "Don't mix it with Dad's," she told him. Beck stared at it like she'd handed him a treasure chest. "Can I keep it forever?" he asked. "Long as you don't lose the screwdriver," she said. We took it to the neighborhood fix-it fair at the rec center that Saturday. Local teens lined up to learn how not to strip screws or ruin their door frames with YouTube advice. Maya floated around, answering questions while I did demos. She watched me work, like she wasn't just checking a box. She was taking notes in her head. Later, we packed up the van. She leaned against the open door and asked, "How's your week?" I told her straight. One rough night, one wet ceiling, one Beck tantrum about socks being too spicy. She didn't try to fix any of it, just nodded. "Mine wasn't better," she said. I asked about her schedule. She didn't joke, didn't deflect, just told me what she was balancing. When she left, she tapped the thermos in my cup holder. "Bring that to the big jobs," she said. "It's your mascot now." Meanwhile, Trevor Pike decided to escalate the HOA war. Harlan swapped out his porch bulb for one that actually lit the damn stairs, and Trevor came back with a threat over unauthorized exterior lighting. "Perfect," I said when Harlan handed me the slip. "Keep it all." I scanned every violation, time-stamped and sorted them into a new folder labeled Pike. I wasn't just watching anymore, I was tracking patterns. A few days later, Beck came home with a flyer for Special Grown-Up Day. He handed it to me like it was an invitation to the moon. "You're my special grown-up," he said, pointing at the calendar. "Every day." I didn't cry, but I took a picture of the flyer and sent it to Harlan with a thumbs up. Maya came by the shop that night with a new key ring and handed me a set. "Shop keys," she said. "Use the tools off hours if you need to." "You've earned it." The way she said earned stuck in my chest. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was something with roots. She lingered a second longer than usual, and I didn't move to fill the space. That next Saturday, Beck fixed a drawer in the kitchen using a plastic wrench and 3 foam nails. I told him it looked perfect. He said, "Maya said always double-check the screws." She was in his vocabulary now, not just a name, part of the structure. That night, we were loading up the van after a late call. Rain had soaked the back lot. She handed me a rag for the seat and said, "You're different than when I met you." "Cleaner van," I said, trying to dodge. "No," she said, "that too. But you walk different, like you know where the ground is now." I didn't answer right away. The rain dripped off the edge of the door. I looked at her, and for the first time, it wasn't boss and employee. It wasn't a line we crossed. It was one we acknowledged. "I'm trying to hold steady," I said. "You're doing more than that," she said, then handed me a thermos refill like it was a ritual. I watched her walk back to her truck. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Something had shifted, not fast, not loud, but real. The morning it happened, I was elbow deep in a stuck cylinder at a dentist's office that smelled like bubblegum and bleach. I had my gloves on, my toolkit open, and Beck's drawing of a lock superhero folded in my back pocket when my phone buzzed. The notification hit like a punch I didn't see coming. A Facebook message from Kendall. 4 years, no contact. Just her name in blue and a message that said, "I'm clean now. I want to see my son." No punctuation, no detail, no warning. It hit like glass breaking in a quiet room. I stared at the screen until the guy behind the front desk asked if I needed a different drill head. I muttered something, finished the job, and told Maya I needed 5 minutes. She saw my face and just nodded. That night, I took the message to Harlan first. He read it once, didn't react, just sipped from his mug and said, "Supervised, or not at all." Then I showed it to Maya. She exhaled sharp through her nose and said, "Write it down." No calls. No emotion. Keep it boring and official. I typed an email through the Lockline break room Wi-Fi. 1 hour. Family center. Staff present. 2 weeks out. That was the offer. Kendall replied fast. Just said, "Okay." Then another message came. This one longer. Asking if I could help square some old debt she still owed. Said she couldn't afford to keep her phone on if I wanted to stay in contact. That told me everything I needed to know. I replied, "No money. See you at the center." 2 weeks passed like I was walking across a wire with a brick on my chest. I didn't tell Beck until the morning of. I kept it simple. "There's someone you're going to meet today. She's part of your story. I'll be with you the whole time." He nodded, like I'd said we were going to the grocery store. The place was bright. Rug tiles shaped like puzzle pieces, low shelves with plastic bins, one clock ticking too loud on the wall. Beck held my hand and swung our arms like it was just another errand. A staffer named Kim sat nearby with a clipboard and the kind of soft but firm smile that told me she'd seen everything. She explained the guidelines, reviewed the form, and pointed to the art table in case we needed a neutral corner. Kendall walked in 5 minutes late, wearing a clean hoodie, ragged sneakers, and the eyes of someone who hadn't looked in a mirror too long. She hugged herself instead of us. "Hey," she said, voice small like she was still deciding if she had the right to speak. Beck stayed by my knee, hand still locked in mine. Kim laid out the rules again. Kendall nodded, then asked, "Can we have, 1 minute alone?" I didn't blink. "No, we're doing it this way, or not at all." She pressed her lips tight but didn't argue. 15 minutes in, the small talk frayed. She started telling a story about a clinic she'd stayed at for a few weeks, then shifted to her phone, getting shut off. "I need 200 to keep in touch," she said, trying to keep her voice light. I shook my head. "Contact goes through the center. That's not changing." She sighed loud, like I was the one making this harder than it had to be. Then she stepped slightly forward, arms half out like she meant to hug him. Beck took a step behind me and gripped my pant leg. Kim didn't flinch. She just slid a box of crayons and some coloring pages onto the table and asked if Kendall wanted to draw with him. That broke the moment clean. They sat at the table for the rest of the hour. Beck didn't say much. He scribbled a picture of a truck and pointed to it once. "That's our van," he said. She smiled. It didn't stick. When time was up, Kim thanked everyone like she was closing a meeting. Beck waved goodbye with his whole hand, fingers wide. Kendall started crying and said, "I'll email you." She didn't. I kept the visitor badge they gave me, the peel-off kind with my name written in marker. I didn't hang it or look at it again. Just slid it into the same drawer where I kept Beck's first school drawing and the county voucher letter from 3 years back. It wasn't a trophy. It was proof I'd done the hard thing the right way. Driving home, Beck fell asleep in the back seat with his fingers curled into a fist. His cheek leaned against the window. My hands were tight on the wheel, throat dry. I wasn't angry at her. Not really. I was angry at the hole she left behind. Harlan was waiting on the porch, thermos in hand. He poured 2 cups before I even stepped up. "You kept him safe," he said, passing me a mug. "That's the job." I didn't speak. Just nodded once. The silence was loud enough. That night, I slept like a man who'd been bracing for a punch that didn't land. Not peace. Just a kind of drained quiet. In the morning, Beck tugged my sleeve while I poured cereal and said, "Can we have pancakes shaped like trucks?" "They'll probably look like pancakes," I told him. He grinned. "That's okay. You're the best chef I made too." One looked like a jellyfish, the other like a boot. He dipped both in syrup and declared them monster truck tires. No fanfare, no soundtrack. Just a kitchen, a kid, and a line I didn't cross. The 10th notice came with an invoice attached, $175, labeled administrative fee for repeat nonconformance. It was printed on fancy letterhead, full of legal-sounding phrases, but the tone was clear as day. Pay up or fold. Trevor had officially gone from petty to predatory. Harlan sat on his porch with the envelope crumpled in his hand, thermos untouched, jaw clenched tight enough to snap his molars. "He wants me to break," he said, not looking up. "Wants to wear me down until I give up the house or die on the damn lawn." I looked him in the eye. "Then let's make it public." We called Maya, who showed up with her scanner, a file box, and a plan sharp enough to cut glass. "Board meets Tuesday," she said, flipping through the printouts like a lawyer who ran out of patience years ago. "We bring copies, ask for the appeal process in writing, and we don't raise our voices first." That first was important. We laid it all out. Photos of the porch light, which was a standard bulb in a weatherproof fixture. The flag bracket, which was mounted clean and tight. The edging job that looked like a landscaping ad. I printed the HOA bylaws and highlighted the sections Trevor skipped when he wrote those citations. Beck's job was to hold the manila folder and not drop it. I told him it was mission critical, and he took it like I'd handed him a nuclear football. Tuesday came, and we dressed like we meant it. I put on the clean lock-line polo, Beck wore jeans without paint on them, and Harlan shaved. The man didn't say a word about it, but he did. The HOA board sat in a strip mall conference room that smelled like old carpet and bitter coffee. Trevor opened with a smug little gavel tap and said the meeting was closed to public comment unless scheduled in advance. I stood up anyway. "We're here to ask for the board's formal appeal procedure," I said, "and for a review of the citations against Mr. Harlan Briggs." Trevor raised the gavel again, but I was already posting a photo of the 9 violations to the community Facebook page. I tagged the HOA, used the words "pattern of harassment," and hit send. People started sliding into the room, quiet at first, then louder. Some stood in the back. A few brought printed notices of their own. Maya stood up when it got hot. Her voice was even. Calm. "We're not here to fight," she said, stepping forward. "We're here to follow the rules you wrote." She laid each citation flat on the table in front of the board members, said the word "baseless" 3 times, and broke down each one by section number. Trevor started to argue about the porch light when Harlan finally spoke. He leaned forward, placed both hands on the table, and said, "Gentlemen, I've bled on hotter sand than your parking lot. Treat me fair, or put it in writing." That room went still. A woman in the back clapped once, then someone else did. The board didn't clap, but they flinched. They rescinded 5 citations on the spot, said they'd review the other 4. Trevor looked like a man who'd swallowed a lemon and it turned sideways halfway down. Outside, we didn't celebrate. We walked out steady, heads up. But I caught Beck whispering to Maya, "Did we win?" She bent down and said, "We're not done, but you did your job perfect." The next morning, I dropped Beck off at daycare and circled the block once before heading to the shop. My gut was still tight. Something was unfinished. I started digging. Nothing deep, just followed a hunch. A couple phone calls. A chat with Miss Florence, who lived across the street from Harlan and kept everything in manila envelopes stacked like bricks. Trevor had been double billing administrative fees to 3 widows on our block. No hearings, no forms, just surprise charges stapled to fake maintenance reviews he'd mailed himself. Maya got us a contact at a legal aid clinic she'd worked with before. We helped the ladies file disputes, sent letters, attached the bylaws and the receipts. Then we published it, quiet, clean, documented, on the same Facebook thread. I didn't expect fireworks. We weren't looking for drama. We just dropped truth in the middle of the room and let it speak. 2 weeks later, Trevor resigned, for personal reasons. No ceremony, no apology. He left a final notice in Harlan's mailbox, unsigned, and waved at me at the community mailboxes like his arm weighed 50 pounds. I nodded once, didn't wave back. That weekend, Harlan framed all 9 citations, hung them in his garage above the workbench like a plaque. "That's a trophy," he said, tapping the glass. "I earned every one of these by breathing and not bending." I thought about my father's old voicemail. "You made this mess." Then I looked at Harlan's frame. Yeah, this was the kind of trophy I wanted hanging in my corner of the world. Maya came by that night with dinner in a paper bag and her hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger and somehow more solid. She watched Beck build a tower out of socket wrenches on the floor and said, "You 3 are a problem when you get organized." I laughed, but not loud. Then she looked at me in a way that made it hard to remember how to breathe regular. "You did right by him," she said, glancing toward the garage. "Not many people stand up for their neighbors once the weather changes." "He stood up for me first," I said. Day 1. We sat on the porch while Beck talked to himself inside, turning tools into dinosaurs. I poured 2 cups from the thermos and passed her one. She didn't need sugar. Some people win by stepping on others. Trevor thought he was that kind, but we won by staying on our feet, steady, straight, and loud only when it counted. And sometimes, when the dust finally settles, the reward isn't money or praise. Sometimes it's just knowing the porch light stays on and the man who installed it isn't going anywhere. The van was parked right in front of the shop, under a camera we hadn't realized was fake. They didn't even bother smashing a window, just jimmied the side door clean like someone who knew what they were doing. 2 high-end key programmers, a laptop with all our service logs, and a box of blanks the size of a beer cooler. Gone. Just like that. Insurance would cover some of it. But not speed. Not the hours lost. not the damage to momentum. Maya sat on the floor of the back room, her back against the wall, knees bent, hands locked together tight. Her eyes were closed like she was bracing for a wave that wouldn't stop coming. I didn't say anything at first. I made coffee, poured it into the old green thermos, the same one Harlan gave me 4 lifetimes ago, and filled a cup. I set it next to her hand. "We lock locks," I said. "We also get back up." She opened her eyes, picked up the cup, and drank like she needed it more than air. We rekeyed the shop that night. Changed every cylinder, every code. Maya rerouted the emergency line to her cell, and I mounted a camera with real motion alerts. Beck slept on a mat in the corner under his backpack, a heel kicked bear, mouth open. He didn't even stir. We worked until 2 a.m. It was slow, gritty work, the kind that burns your hands and clears your mind. It helped. The next morning I was about to pull out of the school lot when the front office called my cell. "Mr. Reese? Beck's okay, but he's upset. Mother's Day planning started and he shouted that he doesn't have one." The words didn't feel like words. They felt like a spike under the ribs. I said I was on my way and didn't hang up right. When I walked into the classroom, the air felt like tight plastic. Beck was in a chair too small for him, fists clenched, jaw set. His face didn't crumple when he saw me. He just stared like he was daring the room to blink first. I sat on one of those tiny blue stools and looked around. "My name's Derek," I said to the class. "Some families are one dad. Some are 2 grandparents. Some are a neighbor who shows up. If you need a special person, he has that." The teacher looked stunned for half a breath, then nodded. "We'll call it Family Day," she said, grabbing a marker and writing it big on the whiteboard. A kid in Spider-Man sneakers raised his hand. "My special person is my aunt," he shouted. The room let go. The tightness snapped. The energy shifted. Beck looked at me and said, "I still get to bring you, right?" I nodded. "Every time, buddy." Later that afternoon, while I was back on a job, I got a text from a number I hadn't saved in a while. My mother. "We heard about what happened at school. We're family. We want to be there." I didn't respond. Thought maybe that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Next day I found them standing in the hallway outside Beck's classroom. Mom holding a bag of store-bought cupcakes like she'd baked them with her bare hands. Dad standing behind her like a lawyer forced to attend a potluck. "We're family," she said, chin up like she was laying down a legal claim. I took a breath and didn't raise my voice. Then act like it. No drop-ins, no backseat parenting. You call first, you take the time you get, and you don't talk about shame in front of my kid. That's the price of admission. She blinked hard. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, shifted his stance like he was thinking of challenging me and realized he didn't have the standing. The principal walked by right then, gave me a nod and said, "We appreciate the grown-ups who show up for their kids." He didn't even look at them. That was enough. I didn't take the cupcakes. That night I finished the police report on the break-in, listed serial numbers in 3 groups, devices, laptop, blanks, and sent everything to Maya. I also flagged a pawn shop 2 towns over that had just posted a programmer that looked real familiar. We handed the info to the detective on the case. Gave him a head start he never would have had on his own. Maya said, "Don't expect them to move fast." "I'm not," I told her, "but they're going to move." She showed up at my door an hour later with a pizza that smelled like melted heaven and a half smirk on her face. "You handled both fires today," she said. Didn't yell once. I held the door and said, "It's because I practice on stubborn deadbolts." She laughed into her sleeve and said, "You're getting better at this." I didn't ask what this meant. I didn't need to. The city grant came through in a brown envelope stamped with a seal that looked like it hadn't been redesigned since the 80s. Maya tore it open at the front desk and stared at the check like it might explode. "We got it," she said, voice flat from shock. "They actually picked us." I sipped my coffee and tried not to look too smug. "You're welcome." She blinked. "You wrote the application?" "At midnight," I said. "Over cartoons. Beck was on a rescue dog, Save the Farm Loop. I figured I'd do something useful while my brain turned to applesauce. She laughed and shook her head. You sneaky little... Then didn't finish the sentence, just pulled a sheet from her desk drawer and slid it across to me. Profit share proposal. Typed, signed, ready. You're not just reliable, she said. You make the ground feel solid. Come in deeper, I read it twice. My pulse hit the back of my neck. My eyes flicked toward the clock, calculating hours. I'm a dad first, I said. If this pulls me away from him, it's a no. She nodded. I like you more for saying that. Let's work the hours around him, not the other way. So we rearranged the schedule. I'd stack my shifts tight while Beck was at school, and knock out admin work from home after bedtime. It wasn't perfect, but it fit. Right around then, Harlan's limp got worse. He brushed it off at first, blamed weather in the joints, but when he nearly fell getting out of the truck, I put my foot down. I drove him to the VA clinic, sat with him through check-in, and waited in a room where the TV was stuck on some game show that made me want to throw a remote. I texted Maya to reassign 2 jobs. She just texted back, done, don't rush, no lecture, no, next time plan better, just done. The same week I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, long loops. It was from Kendall. I'm staying. I won't ask for money. I'm sorry. That was it. Simple, honest. No plea at the end. I put it in the drawer with the family center visitor badge. I didn't tell anyone. I just let myself hope for her quietly. Then the school sent home a flyer about career day. Beck pulled it out of his backpack like it was gold. You have to come, he said. You have the van and everything. I brought the van, a crate of old locks, and Beck in a lockline hat 2 sizes too big. The kids cared way less about pin tumblers and way more about whether the van had a siren. Where's the button? One kid asked. I said, you think I'd survive if I gave this guy a siren? And pointed at Beck. He puffed up with pride. Later that day, my mom texted a photo of Beck from when he was 2. One she printed off my old Facebook. Under it, she wrote, "We miss him." I stared at it for a long minute. Then put the phone down and bought Beck a snow cone from the food truck near the school. We sat on the curb, tongues dyed blue, sticky hands, nothing heavy. That night, Maya stopped by with a toolbox in her hands and a tired smile. Beck was already asleep on the couch, toes splayed like a starfish. Dinner? I asked. She shook her head. Already had eggs standing up at the shop. We made toast. I scrambled some leftover hot dogs with eggs, and we ate standing at the counter, passing the mustard back and forth. After she dried dishes, I wiped the table. Her hand brushed mine over the dish towel and didn't move. Someday, she said, eyes still on the sink. When you're ready. I didn't flinch. I didn't joke. I just said, I'm getting there. She squeezed once and let go. The next day, Harlan handed Beck a child-safe whittling set with a look that said, "This comes with lessons," even if he didn't say it out loud. We sat on the edge of the yard carving sticks. Beck listened like the wood had secrets. Then we started prepping for the Lockline open house. Flyers went up. Customers got invites. Maya ordered a bounce house because she said, "We're either serious or we're fun." Let's be both, I promised. Coffee you can stand a spoon up in, and filled the thermos anyway. Didn't matter how good the turnout was. What mattered was, this thing we were building wasn't leaning anymore. It could hold weight. It could hold us. The parking lot smelled like grilled onions and new rubber, bounce house vinyl baking in the sun, smoke curling off the flat-top griddle we rented from a guy named Donnie who insisted on flipping everything with a wrench. We set a table with old locks and tiny screwdrivers, and a mason jar with duct tape across the front that said, "Neighborhood Lock Fund, pay what you can." Harlan's idea. Folks shouldn't be scared behind a broken door, he'd said. Simple. No lecture. My parents showed up before the official start. They stood near the chain-link fence like they weren't sure who they were allowed to be. Mom waved at Beck like she was afraid it might snap her wrist. Beck waved back without slowing down, then threw himself headfirst down the bounce house slide, legs kicking in the air. He popped up laughing and gave me a thumbs up like I'd planned the whole day just for him. Maybe I had. Harlan came in slower, knee stiff but steady, wearing a short-sleeve button-down I didn't recognize. Pressed clean, white with gray stripes. "Don't make a speech," he muttered as he passed. "You'll cry. Then I'll have to fake a heart attack to change the subject." I gave him a side glance. "You threatening me with an ambulance now?" "Only if you get sappy," he said, but his mouth twitched at the corners. Maya showed up mid-rush, hair pulled back, blue shirt tucked into jeans, wearing the lock-line jacket I had tailored for her behind her back. She didn't say a word about it, just rolled up cables and secured a speaker to a folding chair like she was born doing it. She stood next to me with a paper plate balanced on one arm, half a bun and a pickle slice. "You seeing this?" I asked. "I see bounce house lawsuits waiting to happen," she said. "But yeah, it's good." We raffled off a fireproof safe, a grocery gift card, and a dad and kid shop day that Beck announced himself. I drew names. Harlan heckled everyone. "Make sure they can actually lift a wrench, Reese." A widow from 2 streets over won the safe and hugged my elbow so hard I couldn't feel my hand for a minute. That's when I grabbed the mic. Hadn't planned to. Didn't write a speech. But sometimes the moment shows up and dares you to stay small. "Thank you," I said, voice low but clear. "For letting a guy with a baby on his chest fix your doors. For not minding formula stains on a van in year 1. For answering when we knocked." I paused. Looked out at Beck, chasing another kid in circles, and Harlan watching with crossed arms and a proud kind of stillness. "I had help," I said, "from a neighbor who didn't blink, from a boss who noticed steady more than loud, and from a kid who thinks I invented pancakes." I held up the green thermos. The dents caught the light just right. This thing kept me upright, and the man who gave it to me taught me to get up early and shut up about it. I walked it over to Harlan and handed it to him with both hands. He took it, blinked behind those sunglasses, then said, "It's yours, but I'll keep it on my porch when you need a refill." We both pretended we weren't soft. We didn't fool anybody. When the noise dipped, Maya stepped up and tapped the mic. "Since he won't do it, I will. Derek's a partner now." He earned it with a calendar, a wrench, and 1,000 quiet choices. People clapped. Nothing wild, just real. I stood there and let myself feel it. Later, after the bounce house sagged and the coffee ran cold, Beck crawled into my lap on the shop step, arms sticky, hair full of crumbs. "Are we a family?" he asked, not looking up. I kissed the top of his head. "We always were." Maya sat beside us and took my hand. "Ready?" she asked, just above a whisper. I nodded once. "Yeah." We told him together. No big reveal. Just what was true. That we were building this on purpose. I didn't look toward the fence, but I saw later that my parents left without a scene. Quiet. No note. No speech. Just gone. No fireworks. No parade. Just a shop that smelled like metal and donuts, a thermos with new fingerprints, and a boy who fell asleep in my arms. It was enough. It was ours. Would you draw hard boundaries with judging family and exes to protect your kid? Share in comments. If this resonated, please like and subscribe. Huge for us. 1 click for you.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.